Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to present once again in a live audience. That's fantastic to be here. I'm going to talk about how we view digitization and decarbonization as a commercial manager. And it's important to understand where we fit into the value chain in order to understand how we can go about and influence decarbonization as a commercial manager. As you can see in this slide, we are an intermediary between cargo owners and vessel owners. We don't own any vessels in Maersk Tankers at all. We provide services for vessel owners and for cargo owners, and the major part of our business is commercial management. We have a couple of other services in terms of bunker services. We also have Project Newt, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But it's important to understand that we don't touch the vessels. So when Inmarsat talks about connectivity and digitization on the vessels, that's not our focus. It's what you can do at shore to influence decarbonization. So what is it that we can actually do in Maersk Tankers? The first thing is we can make sure that we understand the vessels that we operate. We need to understand their performance. We need to make sure that we position the right vessels for the trades that we can do in our pools. And it's important to say that we are a pool operator, so that we have 200 vessels under management in 5 different pools, with the large vessels down to smaller vessels, of course. But the 200 vessels we operate, we can influence which vessel we choose for which trade. Seems pretty obvious, but a lot of things come into play if you want to do that as efficiently as possible and have decarbonization in mind. A second element is that you want to make sure that you position the vessel at the right place also. So having the right vessel, but you also need to have it at the right place. So you need to understand the future of the market in order to position the right vessel for the right place and also at the right time. And okay, that seems pretty obvious, but in order to do that, a lot of different touch points goes into making these decisions. And the ones of you who understands this in great detail, you know the complexity of operating this kind of business model here. But for us, there's so many elements that goes into play in order to make these decisions and also operate the vessels once we have actually decided to position a vessel at the right place at the right time. Then you operate the vessel as efficient as at all possible. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But for us, fundamentally, it comes down to better decision making. And if you want to make better decisions on the pools that we operate, then we need to have a strong data foundation. Because data is the fundament for us to make the better decisions. That sounds pretty trivial again, but when you have data in so many different places and coming from so many different sources, you need to think about how you structure that. And the way that we have gone about this is basically to create one common infrastructure for all of Maersk Tankers. This is not a SAP project. It's you can say by project, we put data into one common infrastructure, one data lake with internal and external data sources. That means that we can work with the data internally and externally in a way that makes it easy to make it available. You create a truth and API structure around your vessels, your voyages, your ports, etc., that allows you to expose that in different solutions. That can be in BI dashboards, or it can be in bespoke digital solutions that we develop that we cannot buy off the shelf in the market. So that's the way that we have gone about it. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the solutions that has a direct impact on decarbonization and that we support in the digital team. The way we view it is basically on the prefixture side. So once you want to make a decision on where to position the vessels, you want to have a forecast. You want to understand what is the future market, your prediction of the future freight rates. Because your pool partners, they of course want to make as high earnings as possible, and we are motivated to do that for them, of course. We have created then our own forecast models. We have also created a solution that we call SimTanker for our largest segments, LR2 and MRs, in which we can basically algorithmically trade our vessels. So it's how to position your fleet optimally in the future in order to maximize your earnings. And that's a pretty complex task. If you really want to go down to a TCE level, you need to understand all your cost drivers and all your revenue drivers and be able to simulate that across all the optionalities that you have in a large network like the MR network on a global basis. The third element is a solution we call Vessel Truth. So if you were a customer or partner of ours 6 months ago and you wanted to onboard your vessel with us and we need to get all the data points in order to trade your vessel, we would send out a lot of different templated emails to you, and then you would answer back, and all that data would disappear into different departments in our business. So we did not have one common place for all data for all vessels. But that we have now, we have gathered it all into a solution we call Vessel Truth, and Vessel Truth allows us basically to build the fundament for making better decisions around the vessels, because suddenly we have the biggest database of tanker vessels in the world at hand that allows our charters and our operators to access it whenever they need it for the decision making they need to take. So a strong fundament in order for making better decisions and choosing the right vessels for the right trades. The fourth element is what we call Port Truth, and you want to combine as many data sources as possible that, of course, makes sense in order to automate your decision-making process. Because you could say that in our pre-fixture vision, could we create a solution in the long term that could be a fix-it-yourself service, 80% of the decision-making process? Then that would be really drive digitization to a large degree for us as a business. So Port Truth is all about getting the data around the ports into one solution, and I'll show you a little bit about that in a few seconds. On the post-fixture side, we have developed what is now today Zero North, and we have a couple of Zero North people here today with Asfak and Søren. If you want to know about the solution that they provide to the wider tramp industry, it's all about optimizing your voyage, and I'll say a few more words about that in a few seconds. The second element on the post-fixture side is actually both post and pre-fixture, but we've created a new bunker adjustment model, and Sid that sits down here from our team also, he can tell you much more about it. But basically we simulate all voyages of all vessels historically, and we distribute then the bunker cost based on that. But what it also allows us to do is suddenly to simulate all historic voyages from a CO2 and bunker perspective. So we can understand what is actually the potential for us in making better decisions, in having the right vessel at the right place at the right time. Because one thing is to say that you think there's a potential, the other thing is actually to show it in data, and that drives decision making much stronger. And the last element is what we call our pool partner platform. It's called Insight Digital. It's not that is a revolutionary service as such, but it drives transparency. It drives transparency to our pool partners so they understand what's happening with the vessel, what is the consumption level of the vessel, what is the bunker adjustment, what is the CO2 footprint. All of that you have ready at hand at any given point that you log into this solution as a vessel owner being with us. So driving that transparency is important. I'll quickly deep dive a little bit into Vessel Truth because so you understand the fundament of why this data is super important for us. So the onboarding process basically from our perspective looks like this. We can understand how far we are in the process, and all 220 vessels we operate are now in this platform, and you can filter and search across that if you are in Maersk Tankers. It allows you also to have ready at hand your basic vessel data so that you understand that. Can this vessel call that port? Well, that depends on you understanding the specifications of the vessels. It's ready here in this database. You have the restrictions. The owner gives you a lot of restrictions. Are you allowed to trade this vessel in a certain area? or do you need to call them if you want to go to a certain area? All of that is now readily available and all continuously updated, because the pool partner is now part of the whole process of keeping all this data updated. You'll have vetting information in here. You'll have all the data that is needed to make and the automated decision-making process around choosing the vessels in the solution. I mentioned Port Truth before, and basically we're not creating a lot of different services for chartering and operational people to go into. We want to create one destination, because all the data is coming from one source, and they will see one interface in which they can make the decisions. So Port Truth will basically allow you to simulate and say, okay, this vessel, which ports can it actually call, and how is that being conducted and automated through algorithms that suggest that to you. That drives much better decision making for us, and better decisions will drive decarbonization. And that's where we really think that we can support this whole agenda. The next element I'll talk about is transparency. And out of the solutions that we created, we can also easily access all the data, of course, of the vessels, of the performance, the CO2 emissions. And we want to make sure that everybody in the organization, they understand what is the level and how can I impact this? And what is the impact that I make with every decision that I take? So can we as an organization help drive down the trend curve, that even though that we get more vessels and our CO2 emissions might in total go up, then we can actually do it more efficient and bring it down. And that's what we want to bring. We want to bring that transparency into the organization so everybody understands what is the magnitude of the decisions that we are making here. I think I said this 2 years ago when I was on stage as well, but through actually doing things and not being in PowerPoint, your opportunities arise. And one of the opportunities that came out of the work that we did is Schroder North. So Schroder North is now a standalone business. I think you are more than 60 people now, and more than 1,000 vessels on the platform from many different owners with a different ownership structure today, but 100% focused on digitalization and decarbonization. The platform that has been developed is a Voyage Optimization solution. It will deliver your performance. You get a complete overview of the performance, and as I mentioned, the people from Schroder North can give you all the details. But built on fuel models, you can get the analytics, and you can make the right decisions in terms of what to do with the vessel on a voyage. It's a combination of your data, and it's a combination of Schroder North data that allows you to take actionable decisions that drives a CO2 impact and a dollar impact, because those two go hand in hand, of course. And the last thing that I just want to touch upon is that we have also created a service that we call Newt, together with Cargill and Mitsui. And it's a service where we basically built a digital twin of any vessel that wants to look at retrofitting technology on the vessels, because we have a lot of historic and, of course, current knowledge about how to operate vessels. And that we put into play and offer to drive CO2 reductions on the vessels. So it's all about comply with the regulations. It's about reducing your fuel cost, and thereby, of course, also your CO2 emissions overall. So through actually working with these solutions, we found out that there are business opportunities that goes beyond what it is that we're doing today, and we can unfold a wider palette of services. And to summarize, just want to say, data is the foundation. So you need to gather, and you need to clean it, you need to structure it, and you need to work with it. You don't need to make a huge, big project out of it to start with, but structure your data and start source by source, getting it into a central structure that everybody in the organization can access. And then focus on where you can actually make an impact. I think it's super important, even though that there are so many areas in the complete value chain of the value chain that we're part of that could benefit a lot for doing a lot of optimization. But focus on where you are in control, and that will drive efficiencies and decarbonization. And that can drive an impact right now. And then I think transparency, I talked a little bit about it. We want to be towards our customers and our partners and internally for our employees. It's super important, and be ready for change, because it is going to be a very, it's going to be a moving target for us. New things will come into play. We have to do things differently. So it is something that you'll hear from many different areas, but I think this one is it's super important if you want to drive a change in this industry. And then I didn't touch so much upon it, but I just want to say, cooperate and be ready to share. This industry is not known for being very good at sharing anything. It is a bit old-fashioned compared to many other industries. And if we want to really deliver on the decarbonization agenda, we have to cooperate and do things together. So be ready to share data. It's not that dangerous to share it. So with that, I would just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. Do we have any questions from the floor? Maria raises her hand here.
Thank you very much, Peter. It was really, really interesting. I have two small questions. First, have you any figures to show that your number of ballast voyages have gone down? I mean, I think that's part of optimizing. And then you talk about CO2 emissions. Would it be possible to include other greenhouse gases?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So absolutely we can do that, but for simplicity, that's what we show here. I cannot show you that we have lowered the number of ballast voyages currently. We're just launching actually internally the transparency on the data. So it's not like everything is done and dusted in Maersk Tankers. We have a lot of work ahead of us in order to deliver on this agenda. But by showing the data, you become aware, and it can become a driver that you want to improve on, right?
Thank you. We have two questions over there, I think. Klaus?
Yes, thank you very much, Peter, for a very interesting presentation and examples of how the data sharing platforms can actually encourage motivation across several operators or owners. Can you give examples about how you can say poor performing operators in the pool are actually well motivated by the great operating vessels in the pool to actually lift their performance benchmark beyond regulation and carbon intensity targets?
So there's a financial incentive because you distribute your earnings also compared depending on the performance of your vessel. So you should be incentivized. So, but of course we have this schisma in the industry with owners and the perspective of them wanting to swap assets rather than maximize the current asset. That might be an issue for getting some of the good things done on the vessels that you would want to do from a greenhouse gas perspective.
Yes, exactly. But do you see also examples where actually it encourages investment in new technologies and onboarding of new energy efficiency levers and so forth? So
as some of you might know, we've sold off our technical management part of our business recently, and we still have Newt as a service offering towards our pool partners, and that's exactly that. It's really to encourage that, and we also have a business model around supporting the investments into these technologies that touches the vessel.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, hi, Peter. Thank you for interesting presentation. My name is Sven from Marlink. I think it's related to the question just before about sharing and maybe also the question about the commercial interest from the cargo owners. Are you able to break down or make a transparency across the business logic with this type of initiative and thereby sharing the commercial interest and benefits? Thank you.
Just to make sure I understand your question, that from the cargo owner perspective, whether we can share or show an incentive towards the business that we provide or the service we provide, or?
I would say it's, we see questions, and that was, I think, represented in some of the earlier presentations, that the cargo owners really ask for savings and for green initiatives. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking here, financially, how can this be shared? I mean, to your last point, maybe that's not quite the point, but can this be shared across the value chain somehow? And is this the intention?
So right now it's not the intention, but I think that by having control of your data, right, and having digitized the platform in which we operate our business, will we be able to offer new business models that can go close to work closer with the cargo owners on sharing some of the initiatives around this front? Absolutely. But it cannot be a manual process.
No,
It'll be too costly, and that's why this work is so important if you want to deliver new business models in the future, the new service offerings.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I've actually got one as well. Can I quickly ask this one before I get... he messaged me about 12 times. Please comment on who uses the data in your company. Is it being used at all levels of the company, up to and including C-suite and the board?
So everyone in the company will have access to our data. So nobody is trying to shield off the data. So everybody can access it. Are we at the point where it's completely being used all the way through the organization yet at all levels? No, but we're in a process to get there. Again, it's a journey, and it's a big change management exercise in order to get there. It's not something you do overnight.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rasmus from Reflow. So congratulations with your amazing journey. I've been following it a lot. So the way that I'm seeing it is that you're taking a move from a traditional ship owner perspective over to more like a software company now, or a no asset-based role in the ship owner landscape. Do you see that as the future of ship owners with no or little assets and then more on the operational side of it?
Well, we need some vessels, right? I'm sure that there'll be more that will go in this direction, because as you could think of new business models, then this kind of digitization needs to happen, and I think that it will emerge, because it is an interesting business if you can run it efficiently and have enough scale in order to make an impact. And scale is for us super important, because with scale, we can make even better decisions, and we can lower the CO2 emissions or the greenhouse gas emissions even further. Yes.
Hi. I know you are Maersk tankers, and therefore you have quite high power, let's say. But did you encounter any problem? I suppose that some of the data on some of the ships, or all of the data on all of the ships, you collect them automatically via data logger. You don't do anything manually, correct?
No.
Okay, perfect.
It's not correct.
Oh, it's not correct?
No. Basically, the data that we use for our solutions in terms of bunker adjustments or void simulation or in Zero North is the Newt report. The Newt report is collected quite manually from the vessels as it is today, right? Of course, there's a software solution in order for them to distribute and share the data with us, and we get that. But that's the way that we do it. We don't use the auto logs. Maybe for some solutions, we calibrate against some data sets from an auto log in order to make sure that we do things, make the right decisions. But overall, we try not to touch the vessels as such.
Okay.
And that's simply because if we need to install anything on a vessel, I mean, when you have 200 vessels and you don't own any of them, then you have to run around and, well, it'll be very difficult to actually do anything.
I know, but digitalization done manually, it's not very nice, I mean, at the end of the day.
But it depends on where in the value chain you sit. So, right, we are in between the vessel owner and the cargo owner. And we make those two worlds meet through the service we provide. And to deliver that service as efficiently as possible, we don't need to touch the vessels as such.
Okay. Then the question is irrelevant. Thanks.
Kathy, I think we do. Yeah?
Oh, one more. Go
okay. On. Okay. One more.
Don't want to let Peter off too lightly.
Hi, Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Rick.
I will link my question to an earlier presentation by Maria, where she said that any reduction in greenhouse gases has to be real. So as a market leader in your efforts towards decarbonization, have you cracked that code, what is real? And is there any general high-level agreement between the peers, what is real?
So there are measurements that are being adopted, right? So the Sea Cargo Charter, which is basically a way of measuring your greenhouse gas emissions on the cargo transported, right? And that's a measure that we all share. So we are using that, and that will be fully implemented in the industry for the ones who's joined the Sea Cargo Charter. So that's a way to do it. So, but is it real? Well, I think that we are in a process of making it real, right? So, but in order to do that, you need to have all what I talked about in terms of getting the transparency and the understanding of the data in your control, in order for you to drive and make the better decisions that will drive down your greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Peter, thank you so much.
Thank you.